and feel free to get seconds if you want. I just don't want this to go too long into your afternoon, so we're going to get started. Thank you for coming, and while you're here, just anything that you're sort of absorbing in your spirit or sort of being reignited in your spirit, number one, I'd love to hear about it, but number two, the heart that we have for children, and that's what we're going to, it's not our heart as much as it is the Father's heart, and it just became ours. But as we're talking about that, and it's sort of, I'm hoping, like, igniting us again and refocusing our vision of children here this morning, share it with others. There's a lot of people that wanted to be here that couldn't be here. Some people that are newer to our family who have children who are in our ministry often. And we want everybody to, like, the heart of the Father for these kids, we want it to be expanded through us and through our hearts and through our relationships with one another. So if you guys could sort of keep that in the top of your minds while we're talking today, not only to be immersing yourself in what we're discussing, but also those that you can now give that to and share that with in your natural relationships. Okay? Okay. So I'm going to act as, because I'm just going to start from the very beginning, because it's been a long time since we've met as parents. So I'm going to start from the very beginning of just how Jesus just started giving me his heart for children. I had a vision one day. I had been serving with the children for a little bit with a lady named Becky. And I just was like around these kids, and the Lord, I just started developing a heart for them. And one day the Lord gave me a vision. I literally saw kids. They were running down the streets. And like there were some kids, they were on bicycles, some of them were running. They went past this guy that was in a wheelchair. And they didn't say a word to him, and he got up. And then I saw this other little boy. He ran into, it looked like it could have been like a Sheetz, like a convenient kind of store. He went in, he said it was like 3 or 4 words, but it was the word of the Lord. He spoke that he opened the doors, he spoke that in the building, and when he walked out, the entire face of the building had changed. Everything about it had changed. And so I was ignited in my spirit immediately, like, oh my gosh, what is in our kids? Like, it took me, I'll never forget it. It's as real to me now as it was however many years ago that was. That there is something extremely powerful, and it's Jesus' presence in our children. So then, as you guys know, you have a vision, and then as you travel along, and you start pursuing what the Father has for you in that, you then start seeing, like I'm starting to see kids everywhere in Scripture. Every time I see a kid and I'm talking to them, I'm hearing Jesus, like so that evolves. So you start seeing things like kids are to be an example to us in our faith and in purity and all those things, in Timothy. You see that in these days, kids can prophesy. Your sons and daughters shall prophesy. We see kids like Joash, who was at like 6, 7, 8 years old. A king. He was a king. I mean, that's huge, guys. Like, it's cool to talk about it, but to actually wrap our heads and our spirits about that and absorb it like it's a part of our own, to see it, it's huge, these kids. What was the one you did? The girl that spoke, he got well, the guy that didn't go, Nahum or something?
Yeah, Naaman.
The little girl, she spoke and said, I know who you need to go to get well. And it started a whole ripple effect of this guy's healing. So then you see in Isaiah where it says, a child shall lead them. So we start just, as little by little, we start seeing all of these things, that the secrets of the kingdom are hidden in children. You can't even enter into the kingdom unless you become as a child. So all these things, we see all these things, and I just start pursuing them. Like, the minute I see it, now I pursue that. And I'm going to find it, because if he shows it to me, I'm not stopping until I get it. And so this is what we believe about kids. We just believe it's Father's heart. That that within children is a faith. Guys, there is a faith that is just, if we could just tap that faith, it's just transforming. There's a love. They know how to love unconditionally. When I take these kids, okay, when I take the kids to the shelter, I take them to the village, wherever I take them, they don't question loving anybody. And I'll be honest with you, I've had a few adults like, he's high, I don't know if we should talk to him. The kids are like, I love you! You know, because kids don't care. There's a source of unconditional love in them that we can really learn from. Their purity, and they're not so tainted by experiences yet. So they're an example to us. They are a source of faith and unconditional love. They also have within them everything that is royal to learn at a very young age. My daughter's 5. She is learning at a very young age how to dictate the atmosphere in her school. Rika did the same thing. I talk about my kids just so you know that like I have little ones, and so don't feel alone if you have little ones, because they can. Rika, on the middle of the playground, just started telling people about how God came to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the middle of the furnace.
Awesome.
There was like 20 parents just waiting for kids, and she's like, and God came to them. So like this can happen. It's not just older children. It's as young children. Allie, the other day, came up to me and spoke very clearly what she saw in the spirit, and she's 4.
And what did she tell you?
So, kids, they see in the spirit, and they can release things in us. Kara, when I was pregnant with Kara, she released something in me, and I have never lost it. The Lord had told me, you couldn't even tell, I wasn't even showing yet, it was very early on, that she would be like a Joseph, where there'd be a lot of just normal dreams happening from the Lord. And I'm telling you, she released more than that in my presence. Before she even came out, I just so relate to how John the Baptist, he leapt in Elizabeth's womb because he sensed and he felt, and he was filled with the Spirit in her womb. So Kara was that for me. I've ever since she was in my womb, she released. I can see angels now. I've experienced them. I have dreams all the time now, and it's because we can tap into, if we are open and we believe, and our belief leads us to hunger. We have to be hungry. I say it to the kids like this. I'll be like, okay, if I tell you I'm going to give you a Snickers bar, if you believe me, they know this because I say this all the time, but if you believe me that I'm going to give you a Snickers bar, you're already watering for it in your mouth, and you are hungry for it now because you believe I'm going to give you what I told you I'm going to give you. So it's the same thing here. It has to start with belief. I've got to see everything that Father is showing me about these children, that He literally has hidden the very secrets of the kingdom inside of them. Once I believe that, truly believe that, it leads to a hunger that draws it out of them. There are some who will sit with children and say, I just can't see it, I can't see it. It's because you're not hungry. You're not hungry. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be, but it's the truth. We believe His words. When we wrap that, when our spirits just start responding that way, we become so hungry. He says, blessed are the hungry. They will be filled. Blessed are those who are hunger and thirst. So I am so hungry for the Jesus in these kids and the presence that they have to be released, that I see it all the time. And all of us are fully capable of experiencing that same presence and those same secrets that will be coming out of your children all the time. So that is really how the whole vision of the heart of what we have here, the heart of the Father for our children's ministry, that's where it started. And that's why we do what we do. It looks very different here. Children's ministry looks very different here. We don't typically do coloring papers and things like that. We do talk about the Bible. We do talk about all these people that love Jesus, I promise. But we always do it with the intent to hear from our children. Just one example. We were taught, this is a while back, but it's one of my favorites. We were talking about Jesus going into the wilderness, and I always determine inside of me, I would rather, most all the time, be taught by the kids before I teach them. Once in a while we differ from that, but for the most, I just want to hear from them first. So I said, okay, we're going to talk about Jesus. He went into a wilderness. God took him there. Why in the world would God take him to the wilderness? So these kids, one of the kids said, I saw Jesus praying on a mountain or like on the side of a cliff. Another kid said they saw all these stars in the sky, and immediately in my spirit the Lord said, Abraham promises as many children as the stars in the sky, they were going to be fulfilled through Jesus. And in his process in the wilderness, the Lord was going to be reaffirming everything of who he was and what he would do, why he was here. Then another kid said, I saw Jesus, and he was stepping stone to stone, and I think it was God teaching him how to lead. I'm going to tell you what, guys, I wanted to put my lesson down. Because it really wasn't that great compared to what they had. So that's what, it's not, we talk, of course, we talk about all these stories that you guys were raised with as well. But it's always with the intent to pull from them what Jesus has given to them. I was going to do something today. Oh, where's my paper? Actually, let's do this real quick. Just tell me if you had one experience that you had today, one like predominant thought or experience in the Lord that you had this morning from the gathering. Just tell me what it is. Yeah.
I mentioned it to Mark, but I really felt like what the Lord was speaking. It said when fathers, I can't remember exactly how, when fathers arise, it releases. When fathers arise in worship, it releases the house. Oh. You know, and it was just, really, very cool. It just really, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's cool. Somebody else? Yeah, Sandy.
While we were doing the worship, I kind of like a real hunger in my heart, a real thought about kids learning to worship. That when they're being and sitting, and it's really, we had talked about this, is telling kids, you're going to be here in the worship, and this is what we're going to do. But I just kept feeling like, okay, this is really important to be able to show them that worship is really cool and God is cool.
And that was cool. I saw you back there dancing with the kids. It was really cool.
It was really good.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Just like one thing. Doesn't have to be like, whoo.
Izzy came up and hugged me.
Mm.
She does that often, but today she really looked at me. It was cool.
Very cool. Okay, so since I'm not getting as much out of you as I did the kids today, let me tell you what the kids got out of our time here together today.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
This is why you need kids.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, not
One
sorry.
of the girls said that God told her, you are important. Happiness, love, spirit presence is close. One of the kids experienced an embrace. One of the kids said, I was special this morning. She felt like the Lord just, there's a lot of that in here this morning actually. I am his child, I am royalty, freedom, awesome. He makes me braver. This is what one of the little kids said. I said, what did you experience today? He goes, brave, I'm braver.
Thank you, Lord.
He's like a 6-year-old little boy. One of the kids said that she is learning to see him with her spirit. One of our older kids. And one of the kids said that they don't have to be jealous anymore.
Glory.
Okay, so I say all that to say this. We need each other.
Yes.
Like, when we come together, if we can come and experience the Lord together and see that our kids are just as capable of experiencing and giving as we are, and actually I'm not leaving till I get it. Like Samuel, I think of Samuel and Eli. You know, God's voice wasn't real common in those days. Eli really hadn't heard from the Lord for a long time. Okay? And Samuel is there supposedly learning about God, who Eli hasn't even heard for a while. So it's got to be pretty, like, dry. I don't know what you want to call it, but a little bit yuck. So Samuel is learning about a God. It says, I think it's verse 7 maybe in chapter 3, where it says, he did not yet know the Lord.
Yeah.
Okay? And he started hearing the Lord's voice. He heard the voice of the Lord. He didn't know who it was, but he started hearing it. He goes to Eli. Eli doesn't even recognize it right away. Finally, Eli's like, oh, that's the Lord. Next time he says that to you, this is how you respond. Do you see? Do you see this? So I confirm that this is Jesus, and now this is how we respond. So then Samuel hears, and Eli, at that point, he had been so void of hearing the voice of the Lord. He was so hungry. We were talking about hunger. He was so hungry to hear what the Lord said to Samuel. Okay? So the Lord speaks to Samuel. Samuel's terrified to tell Eli, because it's not a message anybody would want to give anybody. It's that Eli's sons are basically going to die. Their lives are going to be cut short. Okay? So Samuel's like, yeah, I'm buttoning this one up. This is not going anywhere. And Eli was so hungry for the word of the Lord that he knew the Lord gave to Samuel. There was no question in Eli's mind at that point of whether or not this is the Lord's voice. And so Eli was like, oh no, you will tell me. I mean, he actually got very firm with Samuel. And it was not an option for Samuel not to tell Eli what the Lord had given to him. We have to have that kind of hunger to hear from each other, for children and adults, for these generations to hear from each other, to come together. So in worship, it's not okay if my child is not engaged. It's just not okay. I love my children. Today, I mean, I'm a parent just like you guys. We have real kids. Today, Amber was, and so I was like, okay. So I took her out, and I looked at her, and I said, listen, you know, you got Jovi that comes to your house for the first time in a year. If she sat there and played a game like this and wouldn't even look at you, the fact that you were there, how hurt would you be? He is here. He is here for you. Don't be looking at that or getting distracted somewhere else. He's here. I need you. I need Jesus in you. You need Jesus in me.
That's right.
You see, it's not an option for me to let her be disengaged. Now, I understand there are seasons that we're walking through in our lives with our children, and you as parents will be sensitive to that. There's times where they're learning just to honor something even if they're not quite connecting with it. But there are times where I am just so hungry, and I know Jesus has something in you. I am not leaving till I get it.
That's right.
We have to have that kind of hunger, like that just, I don't know if we know what it's like to be really hungry, where we're not stopping till we have something to feed on in the Spirit. But they have that fully. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. What does that look like? How do we prepare our children, not just when they walk in the doors, oh, the music started, sit down, but how are we how are we living in such a way that we are this hungry to be drawing this out of them and seeing it, recognizing it in them all the time? I will talk specifically to our gatherings before church. How can I facilitate my child coming prepared as I am to be coming prepared, okay, in my spirit with the Lord? How do I do that on the way here? How about when I wake them up? What does that look like? How can we constantly, in our minds, be so hungry for the Jesus in our children that we're like, come on, let's guide you here. So what are you thinking about this morning? Did you see Jesus last night? Did you have any dreams? What do you think he wants for our family this morning at the gathering? Like what's his thoughts? Tell me. start talking through it with them. So they're now, in the front of their minds, they're starting to also be thinking this way. It's training. It's training. But it'll become natural. The more we live in that place, the more they're released to live there too. So as we come, and then while we're here, really, it can look very different. There was one Sunday, a couple months ago where there were several kids and they had built like a little fort in the back. And so it's cool, but I was hungry for Jesus in them. And not just with the kids stuff, but like during the gathering, like with the adults. I want their presence. They don't have to necessarily speak on a microphone. I need their presence. We carry presence. So I sat down with them and I said, listen, I don't know, fort, I don't care what you're doing with your fort, as long as I get something from Jesus in you, right there. So if you are gathering with one another and you are convening in the name of the Lord, and I get to hear of Jesus, I'm cool with this. But if we're just playing, it's not okay. And we have to be okay with discussing those things and loving our children enough to sort of sit down and talk with them that way. I told him, I said, listen, I love you just like you're mine, and I would have the same conversation with my girls. Like, I love forts. I love, one of the kids, I said, so how many hours do you play a week? She's like, oh, hundreds. I play hundreds of hours. And I said, okay, so we have 2 hours with our family to see Jesus in 200 or 300 people. And immediately she was repentant in her spirit. I didn't even have to tell her anything other than that. She's just like, and she immediately went, asked the Lord what he had for her, and drew a picture and brought it to me in the middle of worship. They're so tender. If we are willing to have those conversations and to believe that our children really can be a part and bring a part of his presence that will make us fuller in our understanding of the Lord, to sit down and have those loving conversations is what they are with them. They'll respond very quickly. So I just want to encourage us in that. Also, when we're going home and when we're at leaving here and going home, when they're going to their schools, wherever they're going, I believe that these kids are kings and queens already. And some of them know they're queens. They'll tell you. I call them a princess, and they're like, no, I'm a queen. Okay. So, but it's true. They know who they are. And so I'm going to stop there. So let's have Kendall. Let's have you share. We have a few people that are going to share with you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to show you this. This is pretty cool. But, because I didn't realize I still had this. But Olivia came up to me during worship, like on May 4th. And she just handed me this. It says, "You are the love." Oh. And I thought that was so cool, just during worship, she just comes up and just gave this to me. And I thought, thank you, Lord, that made my morning, right? I sense that we are in the season when the hearts of the fathers are turning to the children and the children to the fathers. It's not like something that's going to happen. That is happening right now. We're in that season. So we are working together or growing together in the increasing awareness of that. And it's changing, it's radically changing everything about us. And I see Brody here, and one thing that I remember when we were doing an outreach, and I'm just going to give a very brief testimony how it personally impacted me. It was actually our first time in Barclay Village. And we had an Easter outreach planned, and we were going to go to 2 different locations, but the Lord had other plans, didn't he? Mm-hmm. And we all ended up in Barclay Village. And so we broke up in teams like we normally do. And Brody and Dylan, and do you remember who else was with us? Okay, Jonah was with us. And Austin, who now lives in Texas, was with us. And Connor Wright was with us. And that was our little group. And we went and we all had these areas. It was a rainy, some of you were with us that day, quite a few of us, you remember that it was kind of it was like a little bit of a gloom cloud over, but regardless, there was a lot of enthusiasm. We knocked on the first door, nobody answered. We knocked on the second door, it happened to be Walter, elderly gentleman who you have now come to know about. It was his door. His door said the word faith on it. Remember that, Brody? We knocked on the door, and Walter came out, right? What do you remember about that? Too many ball games since then, huh? It's okay. I'll tell you what I remember, okay? I remember that Walter came out and said hi, and we just said something like, you know, we're just wishing you happy Easter, and we had a little Easter thing, a little gift. And the guys, you know, we said, is there something we can pray with you for? I don't really remember what his request was, but these guys, like, just went right up to him, and just, remember, you just put your hands on him, and just started to pray. And Walter, he got teared up, man. He got choked up. And he's like, I never had anything like this happen to me. But this guy's been like 2-time in airborne. He's been like, he's from Pittsburgh, okay? He's like, he knows everything and everybody, okay? And he's like being serious. I'm thinking, oh, he's just, no. Something's starting to resonate. And I'm realizing this guy is being impacted by the Lord through these kids. He goes in, he gets like some money, and he comes out and he gives it to one of them and says, put this in your offering. Where are you guys from, you know? I've never had anything like this before. You guys changed, you made my day. And consequently, as a result of that, you know, I mean, our outreach began to shift. But in my own person, I started to realize that there was a new season. For me, I mean, it might have been, I was coming into a new awareness that these kids were opening a way. I mean, Walter would have probably engaged me, but it would not have impacted him. When he tells that story today, and I've heard him personally relate that story probably a half a dozen times, he gets choked up. His lip quivers, and he still says, you guys changed my life. That day changed my life. So it's not the mentality that we are raising the next generation of the church. That is true. We are sowing into the next generation, but that not at the expense of like, okay, these guys are like underlings. That mentality is illegal. They're not underlings. So we want to not just engage them, we want to see the Lord wants to engage us through them. And as we allow that to happen, then he comes forth and he teaches us stuff. And I could go on. I mean, I just have been totally transformed in the last probably, I don't know how long it's been, a couple of years. You know? And so when she mentioned the verse, the hearts of without the faith of a child, you can't enter. For me personally, and I'm not like some kind of doctrine thing for everybody, but for me personally, it's my responsibility to steward that faith of a child within myself and pay attention to that and let that come forward and follow that. That's how I go into the kingdom. My intellect, my rationale can get in the way and trip me up. So that's the way I process it individually, but collectively we have the opportunity and the responsibility to nurture that within our group. And that to me is the most exciting thing. So
Anderson, come here, baby. So I wanted Anderson to share a picture that he had the other Wednesday night. It goes along right with what Kendall was saying. Can you share with them what we were talking? Do you remember what we were talking about, or just your picture?
Oh yeah. Well, on one Wednesday night, we were talking about like what Jesus like asked people like what they thought like he named them and stuff. And I asked God what he said, and I drew a picture of like big like gates to like the kingdom, and like he like shows people like things like stories and stuff that can get them closer to God.
So this is an example. We were discussing when Jesus says, "Who do you say that I am?" And so each of the kids were asked, like they were just from their experience, who do they know of the Lord? Who is he to them right now? And that was what he drew. And you said something like, he is the gate to the kingdom, or he is the door to the kingdom, Jesus is. And this is, so this is Jesus. We know this is a treasure, okay? This is something he's hidden inside of Anderson and Anderson's experience. But now I'm hungry for it to become part of me. So that's what happens then. The next day, that whole day, I could not get this picture out of my head that Anderson had drawn on Wednesday. And Jesus kept saying to me, I am the door, I am the door, I am the door, I am the door. And he says, knock and the door will be opened. And so he then started just, talking to me that whole day about doors. And really it was a whole nother understanding of doors into the kingdom. To the secrets of the kingdom that are hidden within people. And it all came through this one picture that he drew. And I feasted on it for days. I'm actually still feasting on it a little bit. Thank you. Yeah.
I think what you're doing is the answer to somebody's question. The same way that Walter may have asked something to God and then Kendall shows up and blesses him. I think kids are asking a lot of questions. Kids are wondering what happened before Adam and Eve were in this earth, or what happens in the stuff that we cannot see. They are asking questions, and we may not have the answer. And what your heart is saying, we need to be ready for some answers. Personally, last night, my husband goes to work, Raquel comes to bed and lays down with me, and in the time where, when you're falling asleep and you cannot lie about anything, I don't know if you've had those times, that you just have to say whatever is true has to come out, and she tells me, Mom, how do you fear God? I don't know what I said because I was falling asleep, and then she said, Mom, I think you need to have more rules for me. You need to give me more challenges, because everything you have taught me, I already know. So I'm like, okay, this question has got to wake me up and I have to think about it. What she's saying is, this is easy for me now. The prophetic, the downloading from heaven is becoming very easy for these kids. What took me 21 years to go on a mission, they're doing it when they're 11 and 12. So it's becoming very, very easy, and we as adults need to be ready to either lead them or be led by them or open the door. I don't know.
I'm so glad you said this, and I'm going to tell you why. So initially I revisited the vision, the whole vision of the children's ministry here, being that we see these kids on the streets changing the world. I just see it in my spirit so many times. This, what you're talking about right now, this past year in December and January, the Lord said for this year, and this has become like our vision for this year, which you'll notice it's probably a little bit of why we've been local and not been on the street as much on Sundays like we used to be. It's because the Lord said they need us to go deeper. Mm-hmm. He had showed me a drill, and he said, you're at the first fountain, you're at the first body of water. He said, but there is a whole nother river if you'll keep drilling. So what happens is we are now in the process of drilling, and it's because your kids are hungry to not only give, but to go deeper. And to really, I want your kids to experience what they're giving. Like what Walter experienced that day when those little boys put their hands on him and prayed for him, I want our kids to experience in their bunk bed Friday night when they got, taking a nap after we got home from school. So, Adelie, the fact that you went there is so, because it is Jesus, and he's called us to there for this year specifically, because our kids have become very, very hungry for depth. They are now learning their impact, but they know and they're experiencing that it takes roots. Like you don't just, so now I go and I can give, but I want to experience what I'm given. That's what this year has become. That's sort of been like the overarching theme for this year, is whatever these kids give, they have to experience it. Even this morning, another way we're going deeper, and I encourage you to do this in your conversations with your kids. If they ask questions, it's easy to go deep, even though it's a little uncomfortable. Sometimes you sort of have to lead them into that place.
And sometimes you don't have an answer.
Right, and that's okay.
I mean, you just don't know what to say because they're asking things that you've never heard somebody ask before.
And it's,
I mean, at least me, I don't know. I only have one.
and
so I
it
don't
is
know.
the Lord, because that is exactly what his word was for this year. It's just deeper. They are so hungry. So they've gotten this, now they're ready to go, and they want more. There's a whole nother body of water if we just keep on digging down. So even in our times together, we have started to, we still and we will always with children prophesy and minister to one another. It's just who they are. But we now are calling them, and anybody that's been with us in the children's time will notice that we're now calling them to a deeper place. This morning we talked about the what was it? The mom from Zebedee or whatever that was like, Jesus, I just want to ask you one thing. Can one of my sons sit on your right hand and one sit on the left hand? And we started talking through that with the kids about how it's easy to get like a little insecure in who we are and a little jealous of somebody else if we see something different, and how to have our identities rooted, going deeper into the Lord and being rooted in Him. So the ministry and the vision, the overall vision is always children ministering and changing the world, coming together with them. However, in this season, which is why you're experiencing this with Raquel, there is a real call, and many of the children are sensing it. They want roots. They really want to go deeper, and it's why we have to sort of direct our teaching and our time with them into that place. Especially when they're ministering, I want them to experience what they're giving. I don't know how many times I've said that lately to the kids. The one Sunday I almost had tears in my eyes. I was just pleading with their spirits. I want you to experience what you're giving to people. So I don't, if we can have those things in the forefront of our minds together and be determined to just be guiding them into that place and into those steps, it's a little uncomfortable. I don't care. This morning was a little uncomfortable. I just don't care because we have to go there. Who wants to be 35 and learning that your identity you don't have to be scared, you don't have to be jealous, you can be secure in the Lord, Let's let them go there, let them get these roots in these deeper places now. So she's asking good questions. It's good. It's actually calling us deeper too. Mm-hmm. A child shall lead them. Mm-hmm. So she's hungry for that, then it's for you to go there too. Yeah.
As you know, most of my time, the children are sitting and doing this during worship, my two. And I thought the same thing for a while. I was like, I really wish they would get involved. I really wish they would get involved. And one day, as we were leaving, I was praying it again. And God slapped me in the back of the head as Spencer started screaming and singing, still holding his iPad. Mm-hmm. So just because they don't look like they're engaged,
and you're right. And that's how you as a parent you're really sensitive to the seasons that your kids are going through and what that looks like. There's no one rule for that. So thank you for saying that, because it's true. Yeah. So the other thing I would encourage you in is not to give up on your children. I've had a few parents lately say, I just can't, this child's struggling with this and I just can't get them past it, or I just can't. Don't give up on your kids. This thing that Anderson had with the door, I'm telling you, Jesus is the door to your kids. He is the door to everyone. If we can learn how to knock on that door, on the very image of Jesus on the inside of our kids, no matter what age they are, if we can learn how to tap on that, the door will open immediately, every time. So don't give up on your children if you're feeling a little discouraged in that. Just keep speaking to the Jesus in them and keep loving them in that way, and they will respond. They will respond to that. There's a few others that we're going to share a little bit from our time. Go ahead, hon.
Me? Yeah. Okay. All right. Can I see if you do it from here?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Video.
So one thing, I've been helping out well, maybe like a year or two now, and one of the first things that the Lord did to me was really humble me after going back there with the children. He started really exposing some unpleasantness in my heart from these children. And through the children, it's just showed me just like my cynical attitude. And just being cynical and even a little bit arrogant attitudes. And so he had to humble me a good bit. It took me down a notch or two. But because of that, I've now been able to start receiving, and I still have to check myself every now and then. But so the Lord has really taught me through the children just the highly personal and creative nature of God and how He communicates to us. Because of course, Jocelyn encourages the children, to close your eyes and what do you see? What has the Lord showed you? And like, oh my gosh, some of the stuff that these kids talk about, I'm just like, wow, I don't even know where you're going to go with that. Like, let's see it, interpret that. Like I remember one time there was this little boy. He said, okay, well let's see what the Lord says about him. And someone said, I saw a piece of toast. I'm like, well, that's a no-brainer right there. The Lord says, you need to eat breakfast. But Jocelyn took it and got the and got what toast meant to this boy. And then there was another vision that stood out to me. There was a pink dot and a blue dot, and they were talking to each other. They got big and small. There was a parrot involved in there somewhere. And I don't even remember the interpretation for that, to be honest with you. But it was one of the more creative children, obviously. But the Lord just took that and somehow we make sense of Jocelyn, make sense of that somehow. So that's one thing that I am still learning. It's just the, don't second guess myself and just brush things off. And the Lord shows me things. It's just, these things are real. These things are relevant, and just don't doubt yourself and your ability to hear.
Right. Amen.
So that's probably the biggest lesson that I'm currently learning.
Mike?
The end. I'm done.
Thank you, Emily.
That's it.
First thing I'd like to say is, I know you all know your kids are awesome. They are beyond awesome. They take me back to when I was a kid, when I was in the youth group. Before I was in the youth group, we had Sunday school class. We heard about Noah. We heard about Jonah. We heard about Paul. Heard about all these cool guys in the Bible. And we colored a picture and a snack. Praise Jesus, that's Sunday school. When we first started going to church here, Dawn, Mark's wife, asked me to help with the kids. And I was more in the enforcer role because we had some that they're kids. They have energy. They can't sit for 35 minutes at a time without moving. So, and that was great. I learned a lot from that. I've helped Heather and Trish, if anybody remembers them ladies. This lady here, if you can't, never seen an adult with as much heart, as much compassion, and literal, like she said earlier, love your kids as much as you do. But, you always hear the saying, kids, I know you all have heard this saying, kids are best seen and not heard. How many people have ever heard that saying? That is wrong statement.
Yeah, absolutely.
They also need to be heard. I think it's every Sunday, the things that come out of those kids' mouths. I'll look at Kendall, I'll look at Josh, Emily, whoever's journey, and we're all like, wow, that just come out of an 8-year-old. And it's just, when I was in the youth group, if we could get 1 or 2 in our youth group when I was in the youth group to pray, that was a miracle act of God, literally. These kids, you almost gotta, when there's a chance to pray for somebody, you literally, Dawson a lot of times, okay, we're gonna do like 2 or 3 more, we got some other stuff we wanna get to. Because they'll literally, and it's every kid, it's not just, some a little more than others, but it's just, it's mind-blowing in a good way that these kids just, it's like I come up with a word for describe Jocelyn, and I had to fuse 4 words together one Sunday that we prayed for her. I still haven't come up with a word for the kids. I mean, it's going to be 6 or 8 words smashed together. But your kids are just awesome. They are learning. They're stretching us. They're pushing us. It's just awesome. And I'm blessed to be a part of it. I've coached soccer. I've helped with the football team. And I'm more blessed being a part of your kids' lives.
And they are blessed to have you. Mike is a father to a lot of these kids. So we are really, really thankful for and honor his heart with these kids, especially our kids from the street. They really connect with Mike. It's because he's got such a heart for them. So thank you, Mike. So there's one more thing I'd like to talk a little bit to, and that is, as we have been bringing more and more of our Barkley kids in to our family and having time with them, there's opportunity for us to sort of love them as we love our own. Bring them, Mark had challenged me with that, I don't know, a couple months ago now probably. And I remember saying, how can I love them anymore? I was expecting him to have this great guidance for me. It was like that. Sorry. It was love them like you love your own. And I remember, I didn't get to tell you all this, but I looked at Chris and I was like, how can I love them anymore? I'm over there all the time. I don't know how to give myself to them anymore. And the Lord started showing me how to love them as I love my own. And there were opportunities, it was like I don't know, a couple days after you had said that to me, there was just opportunity, it just all opened up. A whole nother level of loving these kids. And so it's just not okay for us to just go there and love them where they're at. It's good to do that. It opens doors. It's a great way to establish relationship, but it's not enough. There is, as Mark had encouraged me, and now I am encouraging you, there is a place for us to actually really, really love them as if they are our own, and to see them that way. So that means both, okay, so I give to my children, I love them where they're at, but I love them enough to not let them stay where they're at. I love them enough to have tough conversations with them. I love them enough to, sometimes you're going to love me, and sometimes, I don't think you would care if I said this, but Lucas one time, he was like, you're mean, and then 5 minutes later, he's like, oh, I love you, it's okay to experience all of love, the same as you do with your children, both the joys and the victories that everybody wants to celebrate, and the tough things the tougher things that we have to walk through with them because we believe in them, because we love them, we know what they're capable of. These kids, guys, they are capable of everything your kids are. I know the one day I got so offended in my, we're not supposed to be offendable, but I was offended. I looked on Facebook, and there were the Special Olympics, and 2 of my kids from the village that come here were on these Special Olympics. And I was furious because I immediately felt the pressure of the labels. I mean, I was so offended for these kids. I was like, you cannot label my kids. They are capable of everything my kids are capable of. They're capable of everything your kids are capable of. So who cares? Okay, they can't read. Who cares? We'll sit down. I can still hear Jesus out of them, and I can help them write it down. There's nothing that's going to stop me from finding this Jesus. There's nothing that's going to stop me from loving you and knowing that you don't have to live the same way that 14 generations before you have lived.
That's right.
You are capable of everything Amberly is capable of. And so to be able to love them that way, believe in them that way, be hungry to see this in them that way, enough for us to do that. And there are times where that's a little uncomfortable. There's times where we have to sit down and have these conversations, and it can feel a little awkward at first because they might not have naturally come out of you. But they need this. The one time I had gone, we were taking some of the kids back after we took them to Sweet Frog. And I walked into one of our kids' homes, and I'm pretty good at handling what we see, on the street. We've been there for long enough that most things don't, startle me anymore. I walked in this home, and I was completely undone. I barely could hold it together to get back to the van, and I cried the whole way back, didn't I, Kendall? And Kendall said one thing to me. He said, "Jocelyn, there's weeping in heaven. The Father weeps for us." And then he said to me, he said, "Jocelyn, they need someone to weep for them. They need someone to love them that deeply. That okay, I love you where you're at. I believe in you. I love you. But I will not let you stay there. Like, we're going to talk this thing through." If we don't, a lot of these kids, and we're meeting and building relationships with their parents, and they're wonderful people. And a lot of them love their children, but they don't know how to love them that way. So if we don't, who will? I mean, some of these kids are 11 years old. They've been in the school system, and they're still not getting that kind of, I love the school. I'm not saying bad things about that, but I'm just saying we have to step into this. This is not charity, and this is not, whatever. This is now, you're mine. And I will love you that way. So that is the challenge that is put before us. It's a good one. And it's for all of us, but I especially, of course it's for our own children, but I especially feel that we really have to direct our spirits and our attention to that for these children that we're bringing in from the street. The last time I was at the village, I was visiting with Gigi. I don't know if you've seen my little Gigi, I like to hold. He and I have a pretty close bond, and I had never met his mom until the ice treasure hunt thing. And she said, her kid came running down the sidewalk to me. She said, "How do you know him?" She was a little bit upset. So we've, over time, started to develop a relationship. So I was standing there and I was talking to her. I said, "Could I bring Gigi to church with me?" And so we're just having this conversation. A lady on the second floor hangs out the window, "I want my kids to come to that church too." They're so hungry, and we have so much opportunity for these kids. I mean, this vision and these things that we hear and that the Lord is showing us and that we're seeing operate in our children, it is for every child. I want to say in America, but it's bigger than that. I'm seeing them everywhere. They're in Muslim countries. They're in Hindu countries. It's for every child, whether they know the Father or not. This is the vision for them. This is the heart of the Father for them. And they are, I mean, these kids are so hungry and the opportunities are everywhere for us to walk in. So, however, we can't bring more of them until we have to do it slowly. We have to like gather these ones and really take on this challenge that Mark has given to us, and I'm giving to you too, to love them as our own, and to sort of, as a family, adopt them that way, to care for them that way, so that, because I don't know if you noticed, but there's some Sunday mornings where I'm running in 8 different directions because I got a kid throwing up in the bathroom, and I got a kid that ran out that door, and I got a kid over here, and then I got kids on. We have to come together. Sorry, I know we're getting close to 2. Coming together to love them as our own. So that is our next thing that I'd love to have in the forefront of your minds. I'd love to have any of your hearts and your hands and to sort of help us in that. Do you want to share? Well, you sort of look like you had a little something that you want to share.
Well, I too, but already done.
Well, I'm good there. Matt, do you want to, I can have Matt share real quick and then you can close up? Go ahead, Matt.
I would have to say that, to be completely honest, my main motivation for coming back with helping the kids was kind of selfish, which I'm okay with admitting, because I wanted to create the environment in my own home that Jocelyn has created in Kids Church, back with the kids, because I honestly, I didn't know how to do it. And I'm great with like little kids, as most of you know, and I'm okay with teenagers too, but the age that my boys are coming into is where, I'll be honest, I struggle with the most with relating with that age group. So I wanted to spend the time with them so that I could honestly get to know that age group better, and so that I could better equip my own children the way that I wasn't equipped when I was their age. And I wanted to be around kids being equipped the way they're being equipped, because like Mike, I grew up in a program where, you did the little felt board Bible study, and you colored a picture, and you ate a snack, and you sang Jesus Loves Me, and that was the extent of your Sunday morning. And I want more than that for my boys, and I want more than that for the kids in our family too, because they deserve so much more than that. And I want to be around that because I will be honest, I need the hunger that they have too. And I want to be influenced by them as much as I'm trying to positively influence them. I want their hunger and I want their innocence back, because, somewhere along the way I lost it. So that's why I love being back with the kids, because there's no blinders with the kids. And that's what I need. And so that's why I like being back, helping out in Kids Church. It's been a while since I've been back there because of my surgery, but I'm really looking forward to being back again with the kids, because I can say that they have impacted my life, and I'm okay with it.
Did you have anything you want to share on the young front?
Anything like this. The young ones, I would just say I just love being with them. There's not too many of you here that have kids in my bracket, but and I think our main thrust is really to get them to know they have love and security here, so they're ready to go into these classes for these teachers, because I'm not a teacher, and I'll be the first to tell you that. I'd rather get down, roll, love, and play with them versus trying to get them to sit for a story, because I get really irritated when 3 of them keep kicking somebody else, and so I don't even go there. I just give them attention and try to get them to trust other people as they grow up to go into those other classes, so that they're not afraid to walk in the door. So,
which they experience that. Karen and Shannon have partnered in with our younger ones and are giving them a lot of love and a lot of the foundational things. Karen's really good at
Karen
teaching
teaches, yeah.
Foundational
Karen
things,
teaches
so.
the foundations.
She rolls and Karen teaches.
Yeah.
So, but I guess I would say this, and I say this to you to invite everybody you know. I would love to have like a list of 2 people every week that want to come visit with the kids.
Yeah.
Just the best way to become like a child is to hang out with a child. I don't know how this developed in me other than I started hanging out with kids. So with intentionality, that's the thing. Be there intentionally to hear Jesus in them. But I just would invite all of you, and I'd love for you to invite, I don't care if they've ever stepped foot in this door. I would if anyone that wants to experience this or see this in their children or isn't quite exactly sure how to go there, we're all in different, seasons of life with our kids. Just come visit us and experience it with us, I think is the invitation too. Also, I know we haven't been on the street a lot on Sundays. However, my heart is like burning to be on the street with your kids again. So when you see opportunities where we're going on the street, because we are still going on the street, we just have been doing it at different times, please, please, please bring your children. Because your children, they make a way. Even was that 2 Sundays ago, when we were down at 2nd Street Park, Kendall and I saw this lady walking across. It was one of the ladies that the kids had ministered to like 10 months ago. And as soon as I showed the lady the picture of the kids praying for her daughter, she just opened wide up. And she was open to us the whole time we were there. So kids really do prepare a way for us. So I just beg for you to, when you hear of these opportunities, bring your kids or encourage others to bring their kids, because it is life for our community. Did you want to share? You can just close.
A couple of things.
Okay.
First of all, I just want to thank you. As a dad, and I think as parents in this room, I want to thank you and thank Shannon for what you guys have been doing for our kids and for how I don't think we realize how privileged we are to have you guys in our lives and our kids' lives. And, I'm not sure how many years you've been doing this now. How many years?
6.
6 years. Yeah. I don't know if you know what the average tenure of a children's director is, but it's a little less than that, in case you're wondering. So, way to go, vet. So thank you very much for what you are, who you are, and what you do for our kids. It's really appreciated. Thank you. Secondly is, we could easily do Sunday school children's ministry like it's usually done. Memorize some Bible verses, do some Bible stories like you were saying. But we have begun to realize that everything that used to be a thing has now become personified into a person, whether it's Jesus or his people. So what Jocelyn is talking about today is taking Scripture, and instead of pounding it into our heads as memorized verses, we're actually becoming the Word made flesh. And guys, I am telling you, it's going to change the generation. I believe the face of the earth is going to change as a result of this type of ministry that's taking place here. It's not readily understood. I've even heard some of my own people say, I just wish we would do more Bible memorization or Bible teaching. And it's someone that doesn't even have kids in this thing yet. I'm like, I actually encourage that person to go back and just spend a couple weeks in the children's ministry and tell me if you don't believe in what's going on back there. Because these kids will come out ahead of where we are.
Yes.
Fully convinced of it. Anderson doing what he's doing, who my kids are today has a lot to do with the ministry that's been happening with our children. So I honor you. And I ask you to trust a little bit of a different looking, I think you guys do. I think I'm speaking to the people that might not be here. But trust what it looks like if it's a little bit different than what you're used to of being a children's ministry. I'm telling you, we're not trying to be like the first century church, but I think because Jesus is such our focal point, it's who we are becoming. And I'm not trying to pattern myself after Acts. I'm just patterning myself after the Lord. Jocelyn's doing the same thing. And I think the results are what we saw in Acts. So I believe we're going to start seeing that fervent love, which is intentional love of the brethren. I think we're going to start seeing healing happening as natural as someone's shadow passing over. simply because of us, our pursuit of the Lord. So let's trust that that's what's happening. And when we watch the Lord come forth out of our kids, that's the proof. And that's the only proof we need. We don't need memorized verses, and we don't need stars on the wall. We need the person of the Lord coming forth. That's what we're doing. I honor you for that.
If you have any questions or people that come to your mind as far as people that you think would be cool to maybe touch base with for, especially as we're looking at bringing more children from Barkley in, please let me know. Because we just want to have a family that's, you know, ready and prepared every time they come in the doors to take them alongside. So, okay?
Thanks, Jocelyn, for everything you do. I just wanted to say that. I really appreciate you, and I love you. And I have a heart to help the save the children as well. So, and I think with my heart is capturing more with the way you teach, it's going to enhance my abilities to help the children more. I appreciate it.
Okay, cool. Can you help me clean up?
That's what we can appreciate.
So we just need a square